morning. It's kind of different to have chapel first thing, I know, but this will be a fun, interactive one, so it will wake you up for the day. So I wanted to introduce Glen. I first saw Glen Guyton speak at MCUSA in Kansas City in 2015. But I was at home on my couch recovering from an unexpected surgery while my 3 kids and my MYF group were there. I was watching the live stream of his keynote to the youth. Glen spoke straight to my heart as he encouraged us to keep your eyes and your hearts on Jesus and focus on what God has called you to do. I sent Glen a thank you via personal message on Facebook, and later that week we became Facebook friends. We met in person last year in Jacksonville at a gathering of Mennonite school administrators, and again this past summer in Orlando for MCUSA Youth Convention. Glen is a planner for MCUSA Convention, and he is the Chief Operating Officer of MCUSA. He also has his own business speaking to groups and individuals about a variety of topics. Glen is passionate about giving back to the community and helping young people develop the skills they need to survive and thrive in a dynamic world. We have asked Glen here this week to talk to us about intercultural competency. Marcus, Maya, and Brian introduced this topic to us on Monday. Glen worked with faculty and staff yesterday in a very engaging and eye-opening activities. I think you're going to appreciate what Glen has to share with us today, so join me in welcoming him to IMS.
Good morning, everyone. Testing one. Okay, I'm on now. All right. Good morning. Oh, y'all are tired. Was the game too late last night? Is that what's wrong? Or was it just too early? Like somebody say, yeah. Well, I hope I'm good too. Y'all hope I'm good? Yeah. Y'all gonna have to wake up. We can turn the screen on. Well, it's so good to be here in Iowa. We have any Iowa State football fans? Boo, I like y'all because I'm from Texas. My daughter goes to the University of Texas, so I'm a Longhorn fan, hook 'em horns. All right. So you like the Longhorns? Okay. Well, we have a few people. Well, a few people that like the Longhorns. Well, today we are going to be a little interactive, so I hope you all are awake. My goal is to wake you up by the time we finish this presentation today. And so let's get right into it. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about building intercultural competency. So that's why I'm here today, and hopefully y'all talked about that yesterday a little bit. Did some things with Maya and the other people, other staff that were involved. So are we on the right track so far? Intercultural competency. Okay. Let's read the scripture. God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel. I am has sent me to you. So if you are familiar with the Bible, this scripture comes when Moses was talking to the burning bush, and Moses asked God, he said, well, who should I say sent me when I go talk to the people of Israel? He says, well, tell them that I am sent you. You know, it's amazing that was the first thing that came to Moses' mind. Like, you know, he had to run through the credentials because he knew that when people got together, so we'll say, hey, Moses, who told you this, Moses? Who have you been talking to? They were going to want to know everything about this person. They were going to know what degrees they had, what neighborhood they were from, what kind of education, you know, that they had, who their family members were. And so God just said, hey, let's just cut through all this. I am who I am. That's who I am. Just tell them that, so that they know that I'm going to actually be everything that they need. That I'm going to encompass every aspect of their lives because I'm, you know, basically because I'm God, I'm the one that formed them. So that's what that scripture says to me, is that, you know, as we think about God, as we think about the kingdom of God, you know, I like that God didn't make just one specific, you know, just point out one specific fact about who he was. God said that I am, you know, I'm this all-encompassing being. And sometimes to me that speaks to how we should look at our lives as children of God. You know, we are diverse. There are so many different things about our character and who we are. And oftentimes we get focused on just one or two things about our personality or our character or about our culture, and we use those things, those differences to separate us. But that's not what God wants us to do. Now, as we think about culture, culture is complex. It's a hard thing. It's a puzzle with many different pieces that have to fit together. So hopefully we'll simplify that just a little bit as we go through the activities, the things that you did yesterday, the things that you'll do today. Hopefully we'll simplify it a little bit, help you understand it a little bit more, but it's still complicated. It's a complicated puzzle. So, culture is kind of like, we're going to do an activity. Culture is kind of like, and we're going to use 4 analogies here to talk about culture. Where are my freshmen? Freshmen, okay. So freshmen, you're going to be the fish, okay? Fish. So freshmen, when I say freshmen, I want you to say splish, splash, splish, splash. Okay, freshmen. Okay, all right. So I want you to think about fish. Just keep that in your mind. All right, sophomores. All right, so you are going to think about the blooming onion. And I want you to say Ozzy, 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 oi, 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 when I say sophomores. Sophomores. Oh, you have to say it with more enthusiasm than that. Ozzy, 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 oi, oi, oi. All right, okay. And my juniors. Okay, so what is that, juniors? What is that? Iceberg. Okay, I want you to say, help me, Leo. Like Leonardo DiCaprio, Titanic. All right. So, juniors. All right, okay. All right, now these are my seniors. Okay, now seniors, this is what you have to say. And you have to say it with some enthusiasm. Say, you're blind. Yo, you can't see. All right. We have the principal knows. All right. Seniors. Okay, all right. Pretty good, seniors. All right. So this is a question. I want you all to kind of huddle in your groups based on your class grade if you can. And then I'll ask a couple of volunteers to shout out some things. But what is the similarity between your object and culture? And what insight does this give you about how to work effectively across culture? So I want you to think about culture, what you've learned so far yesterday, and what you just think, maybe what you've heard on the TV. But we're going to take a few minutes, and I want you to think about each of these objects and how it may relate to culture. All right, do y'all need an example? Okay. So let's say like the iceberg. There are many things about culture that lie under the surface. Okay? You get it? All right, so go. I'll give you like 3 minutes to talk in your groups. You can move around. That helps. It can be small groups. Are they by class?
No.
Oh, well, let's go by grade levels, yeah.
Freshmen up front, sophomores back, juniors back, seniors front.
Oh, he's going up there?
All right, think about your object and how it may relate to culture, and what insights can you gain from that? What can you learn from your object and culture? All the fish need water, okay? All right, that's actually a very good point when you think about intercultural competency, when we think about similarities between cultures, so that's good. One more from the freshmen. You had to say splish, splash, splish, splash. Okay, all right, one more. good. Kind of like dominant culture, non-dominant culture. That's true. All right, so here's some things that I came with. Many aspects of culture are invisible, just like water. So sometimes you don't see all of the things that are involved with what make up a culture. You just take it for granted, just like fish probably take their water for granted. The importance of culture sometimes isn't realized until you leave it. You ever heard the phrase, like a fish out of water? Sometimes when you change cultures, when you go into another culture, then it's like, okay, something has changed here. You know, you take a fish out of the bowl, then they start struggling, hey, something is not right, I'm not in my culture anymore. Understanding culture sometimes means testing your own waters. So those are the three things that I came with. You know, it's different fish need different type of water. Some fish need salt water, some fish can survive in brackish water. You know what brackish water is? Kind of that water that's in between salt water and fresh water. So some catfish can do a lot of amazing things, plus they are delicious to eat. Sophomores. All right, that's good. I like that. All right, come. Sophomores, what you come up with? Okay, all right. Layered, complex.
Can you repeat what they say?
Oh, okay. She said that the culture is layered, like many different layers to culture. Something else. Sophomores. Another point. No, nothing else? No volunteers? Nothing else from that group? Okay, good. The plate kind of holds it together. Okay, so there are some aspects of culture that hold it all together. Okay, that's good. So this is what I came up with. Culture is tasty. Right? Culture can really be tasty if we really take the time to really experience it. The smells. There are certain things that I think about a culture. I can think about the smells, the food, the taste, the experience that surrounds it. Culture is layered, so that's what we say, just like an onion. There are many different layers that you have to get through. And you gotta keep peeling to get to the good part. All right, you gotta keep peeling to get to the good part. So that leads me to think about a song. I promise that there will be music during this time. So we're gonna rap a little bit. Is that okay with you all? Yeah. Okay. Anybody know who Houdini is? You know who Houdini is? Oh, you don't? All right. It's the 80s, I know, I'm getting old, so yeah, I don't know about, like, my son listens to Lil Pump and Lil Yachty or whatever, and this is how all the rappers today sound to me. I don't know what's going on, so I've kind of gotten to that age where, like my parents, I don't understand what the rappers are saying. But back in the 80s, you could understand all the rappers, right? It was good music. That's when music was good. So here we go. And so I'll say it first, and then I want you to rap it with me, okay? When we're gonna get to the good part, get down to the good part. When we're gonna get to the good part, when we're gonna get to it. I got that? Come on, that's simple. That's better than. All right, here we go. Well, just repeat after me. When we gonna get to the good part? When we gonna get to the good part? Get down to the good part. Get down to the good part. When we gonna get to the good part? When we gonna get to the good part? When we gonna get to it? When we gonna get to it? All right, so put your hands together for me. When we gonna get to the good part? Get down to the good part. When we gonna get to the good part? When we gonna get to it? Come on. When we gonna get to the good part? Get down to the good part. When we gonna get to the good part? When we gonna get to it? All right. So that's what we really actually, when we think about culture, there are so many different aspects of culture that can be great, that can be exciting if we get beyond sometimes what's just on the outside. We gotta keep peeling it back and get to the good part. It's just like when you get a cinnamon roll, you know, you have to forget about all that stuff on the edge. You got to get right down into the middle of it, right? My son does that with the Sister Schubert's rolls. I don't know if y'all have those. They come in a little tin. He likes eats the middle out of the rolls. Like he leaves the edges of the roll for me. Because it's more tasty in the middle. All right. Juniors. All right, okay. And my son is a junior. My son is class of 2019. What did you come up with, class of 2019?
There's much more to culture than what meets the eye.
Much more to culture than what meets the eye, okay. That sounds familiar, but that's really good. What else? What else? I heard somebody say something really good back there about the size, mass, what? It's large, and that means something. Culture can be large, and it can kind of be intimidating. What else? What else?
And it can split off and have subcultures.
Oh, it can split off and have subcultures. That's true. That's true. So that's some interesting aspects about culture. So what is on the surface is just a tiny piece of culture. And sometimes we get stuck on these things like dress, music, food, dining. We get stuck here. Holidays, language. We think that's all there is to culture, but there are so many different things under here. Learning styles, communication styles, how people make decisions, interpersonal relationships, other habits that we don't often see in everyday life. And culture is not an easy thing to shift. Like you just can't just pick up an iceberg and just move it and just push it. You can't just do that. And sometimes to change culture, to shift from one culture to the other, it's hard. It can be difficult. It can be stressful. All right, who is this right here? Y'all know who this is? Anybody know who that is? You thought it was Snoop Dogg. Can we take this young man out of here? He is being culturally inappropriate right now. All right, seniors. All right, seniors, good. Seniors, what did you come up with, seniors?
Sometimes, you need to put on someone else's glasses to see things from other people's perspectives.
All right. And that's what I'll get to that in a second. Next one. Seniors. Keep trying, seniors, keep trying. All right, what else?
Oh, okay. It's like 3D glasses. If you don't have them, you can't watch the movie.
Oh, if you don't have it, you can't watch the movie. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. Well, that's DMC for Run DMC. And that song that we sang says, you're blind. Yo, you can't see. You need to wear sunglasses like DMC. That's where this song comes from. That the class of 2018 was saying. So, culture. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. That's the interesting thing about culture. Sometimes if we aren't in that culture, like you all don't know anything about 80s rap and you really don't care about 80s rap, and so you don't appreciate the depth of this outfit that I have on right now, because you don't have the right perspective. You need to wear some glasses, son, like DMC, to appreciate this analogy that's going on right now in your life. Now, if you go home and tell your parents, and yeah, the speaker wore these funny glasses, had this gold chain on and this fly hat, they'll be like, oh man, that's dope. But if you don't have that perspective, you can't appreciate, like your principal is like just happy right now. If you don't have that perspective, you don't understand sometimes the things about culture that people really embrace and how they feel about these things. Sometimes you need help seeing things clearly. Yeah, of course, we said that. With glasses help you to see. You need glasses sometimes, a different perspective in order to see the culture. And of course, 80s rap songs transcends culture. Original rap, OG. Hey, when you're the first, you can't get any better than the first. So let's talk about some definitions. What is culture? We talked a little bit about the aspects of culture, but what is culture and what is intercultural competence? Culture. What is culture? What is culture? What do you think culture is? deflecting. What's Eli?
It's like,
All right, let me help you all out. Here, look, this is what culture is according to the definition. Look at all that stuff. Customary beliefs, social forms, attitudes, values, goals, conventions, social practices. It's a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like I said, it is kind of complex. So let's simplify it a little bit. Culture is our way of living and our collective way of doing things. I mean, that's basically what culture is. And again, there are subcultures, there are big cultures, there's a dominant culture. I mean, you even have a culture at your home. There's something, you all know how people like their house smells a certain way? You know, you're like, and me and my daughter would always have a conversation. I wonder what people think our house smells like. Because some people's house has a distinct smell, it has a distinct attitude when you go in. There's a certain culture to what's going on in that home. And there's a distinct culture of what goes on here at IMS. There's a distinct culture of what goes on if you are Mennonite. So there are many different cultures. There's an American culture that we all share and have some commonalities because we as Americans do things a certain way. Oh, you can't see that. Well, but I still know what it is because I'm a professional and I am prepared. Well, there are three different things that we want. Okay, yeah. So there are three different things we want to talk about: diversity, inclusion, and intercultural competence. So diversity. A lot of people, when they talk about being anti-racist or intercultural competency, they stop at just the diversity area. Ma'am, can you come up here? Could you stand here, please? Stand right there for me. Eli, can you stand right there? Let's see. Do we have any African American people here? Yes. Brother, come on up there. Come on up here, sir. Let's see. Ma'am, can you come up here? Stand right here. Do we have any people from an Asian background here? Totally. All right, totally. Sir? All right. We have just created a diverse panel of people. All right, we have age diversity, we have gender diversity, we have racial diversity, we have some geographic diversity because I'm from Texas. So this is diversity. All right, my diverse group of people here, can you all raise your right hand? Put your right hand down. Raise your left hand. Put your left hand down. Raise your right foot. Do the hokey pokey. Okay. All right. Now we all just basically did the same thing. We have diversity because we check off different boxes, but we're all doing the same thing. We're performing the same tasks. And so we all may have different skills and different capabilities to do things, but that's not being expressed by diversity alone. Okay, you all can have a seat, thank you. The next step would be inclusion, to figure out what gifts each of us has. What gifts do we bring to the table? Maybe Eli is a great tap dancer, and maybe instead of raising his right hand, he wanted to start breakdancing or tap dancing or something. But when we start talking about including people into our circles and including them into our community, it's more than just who is in the room or what people look like. It's about what skills do they bring. We want to include the diverse gifts that they bring to the situation. And then the next thing is intercultural competence. So how do we achieve that? What are our strategies? What are the systems we put in place? And intercultural competency is doing things like we're doing now. We're trying to build that. We're learning about different cultures. We're learning to look at ourselves in the midst of those cultures. We're learning how difference affects us, how it impacts our lives, and how it impacts the lives of others. So we get that. So diversity is really just about who's in the room. You can have a diverse population of people and it still be oppressive. It could still be backwards thinking because it's just about the faces that are in the space. Inclusion, we begin to look at the gifts that each person brings and we try to include them in the things that we're doing. And intercultural competence, brings all those things together and does it in a more, what we would say, a systemic way. So it makes it a part of, again, we start shifting the culture, we start changing the culture. We begin to move that iceberg. Intercultural competence, so the context, understanding who is in the room. So everybody just look around. Look around. Look around, look around. Did anybody see Hamilton? Anybody see that? Yeah, that's like, yeah, it was great. It was life-changing. I love Hamilton. Yep. That's when we go on road trips with my family, we listen to Hamilton in the car now. That's become a part of our culture. So context is understanding who is in the room and beginning to know some things about them, maybe asking some questions, observing different aspects of their culture. And I think you're all going to do some things kind of like that today as part of your action. So building intercultural competence is really just understanding who's next to you. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Community, giving value to those in the room. Again, we want to value the gifts that people bring that are part of their culture. And then changing, ensuring that everyone in the room can do life, right? How many people want to live? You want to live? I want to live, hopefully everybody. Hope you want to live. I hope you want to do life. I hope you want to do you. I have a podcast that I do for young people. And one of the things that I say on that podcast, it says, not only do I want you to live your life, but I want you to love the life that you live. And that's my hope and dream for all of you as you think about what you want to do, what you want to be in life, that I want you to live your life. I don't want you to live Glen's life. I want you to be happy with who you are, whether it's being a female, whether it's being Latino, whether it's being white, whether it's being Mennonite, whether it's being Amish, whatever identity that's a part of who you are. I want you to embrace that. And then I want you to love the life that you live. And we all should have that attitude as we look around the room about the gifts and talents that people bring. So I had the suitcase here because sometimes once we get out of our own little circles and start to travel, we begin to have a deeper appreciation of other cultures. So embracing cultural differences. There's so many different aspects of culture that we need to be aware of. Again, like I said, there are many layers to culture and it's very complex. So gender, hey, that's a very different aspect of culture. And we live in a male-dominated society. For the most part, we live in a male-dominated society. And so men, we have some things about culture that we need to pay attention to when we interact with people of a different gender. There are some things that we as men need to be cognizant of. Age. There are some things that we have to be cognizant of. So teachers, as we use examples like me with the 80s, like y'all don't get it, so there's a different culture based on what generation, what age you are. Young people, I said, y'all, how many of y'all use Snapchat? I just don't get it. I don't get Snapchat. I feel like I should be snapping something right now. I just don't know. But so old people on Facebook. But y'all Instagram, right? Y'all like Instagram? Yeah, kind of. So, YouTube. How many of y'all watch like gamers on YouTube? Yeah, I don't get that either. My son does that all the time. But so there are different aspects of culture, how we receive, of age that have to do with how we receive information. So if you're born more into a digital age, I like reading stuff on paper. I just can't comprehend stuff as well on the computer screen as I can if I just read it on paper. Race, there's some different things about race, whatever you think about it, especially in this country. Some things about race, nationality, ethnicity that are different. Socioeconomic status, that's a big one too in this country. So I probably have more, you may have something more in common with people at your same economic status. So if you're rich, you may have something more in common with rich people. If you're poor, you may have some things more in common with poor people. I mean, those are different aspects of culture and identity that shape who we are. If you're not from Texas, like Texas to me is a culture in itself. I lived in Virginia for 17 years and then I moved back to Texas and I forgot how crazy Texas was. Texas is really one of the only places that has like flags. Like everybody has a flag or a Texas star like on their house. It's just one of the few states that's just like that. Texas is so big you can just drive across Texas for 2 days and still be in Texas. A friend of mine went to Spain and he just walked this Camino. El Camino is this walk, and he was walking like for a long time, for like a month. He was walking, really, literally, he was. I'm not being funny. He was walking for a month on this pilgrimage thing. And he would tell people from the United States, hey, I'm from the United States, and they were, okay, that's great. And one of his friends was from Texas, and he said, hey, where are you from? And he was like, I'm from Texas. And they were like, bang, bang, bang. And so in the perception in some people's mind, they think like everybody in Texas has a gun and that they shoot people, and that's probably true for for a large amount of my fellow Texans. So there are just many different things about culture, and I didn't name all of them, but there are many cultures, many subcultures. And so as we go through this day, and I'll interact with each class on some different activities, but we want to think about where we are culturally. So today we did talk about intercultural competency, a definition for that. And what's that definition of? Well, what's the definition of culture that I gave you? What's the definition of culture?
The way we live.
The way we live, we're basically the way we do life, the way we do things. And so we also have a definition of intercultural competency. Throughout this day, I want you to reflect on your own intercultural competency. So where are you? How well do you deal with change and transitions and inviting other cultures into your life? How well do you do that? And we'll do some exercises to talk about that. Develop your own outcomes for intercultural growth. What do you hope to achieve in regards to being interculturally competent? Do you just want to be, hey, I'm Mr. Iowa, I don't care about anything else. It's just Iowa all day long. Or do you want to say, hey, I want to expand my culture. I want to know about other parts of the United States. I want to know about other people. What are your goals in regards to intercultural competency? If you're a man, I want to be more sensitive to the needs of women in the community as I work, as I interact with people. What are your goals for intercultural competency? And then the activity we'll do together is you'll be able to map out some ideas for your intercultural competence in the future, so that you can track it. It's a progress. You all are just starting out. You got a long road to hoe, as they say. Have you ever heard that expression? Yeah, maybe, yeah, no? Who has not heard that expression? Okay, so it's like, y'all are kind of like in a farming kind of area, so you got like a long road to hoe. So you have a long journey ahead of you. You have a long journey ahead of you, and you're just finding out who you are. So part of intercultural competency is understanding the world not only through your lens, but through your glasses, but also able to shift and see the world through the lens of others. And so I know it's challenging when you're young, when you're just getting started, to actually, to start thinking about how others see the world when you're just trying to figure out your own worldview. But the sooner that you can begin to embrace that, again, embracing who you are, because that's important. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's important. Embracing who you are is an important aspect of intercultural competence. Because if you don't know who you are, it's really hard to relate to other people. And so that's why I tell people, I want you to also love the life that you live, because that's important. It takes all of us, each and every one of us, to have this rich culture. So if you're white, you can be proud to be white. I tell people you can be proud to be white. If you're black, you can be proud to be black. If you're Mexican American, you can be proud to be that. If you're from Cuba, you can be proud to be from Cuba. If you're 5'2", you can be proud to be 5'2". But that doesn't mean that you can't appreciate and embrace what other people bring to the table. All right, so this is me. So if you want to stay connected, I am on Snapchat, but I don't do any snapping because I don't get it. I don't know what to snap. If y'all can tell me something interesting in Snap, I'll do more on Snapchat. But this is how you can reach me. Everything is basically at Glen Guyton. So if you look up, if you do Glen Guyton, that's how you'll find me. I am writing a book called The Ideal Me. It's helping young people understand their purpose in a cluttered world. That's going to be coming out pretty soon. So if you want more information on that, you can just text Ideal Me to that number right there, and I'll mail you some information when I get updates on that book. All right, I think we would have like 10 minutes? 5 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Any questions from you all? Questions? Anything that you want to ask about culture, about Texas, about the presentation? Yes, sir. How different is it? It's very different, I would say, especially like this part. So, you know, Texas has a couple of really big cities. You have Dallas, you have Houston, and you have San Antonio. So those are the three big cities, and they actually each have their own culture. So I would say Dallas is kind of more like what you think of Texas, with the oil people and the businesses and the flashy cars. Houston is actually one of the most diverse cities in the nation. So just a lot of different people come together and a lot of different cultures represented. And San Antonio is more laid back, kind of like, it's probably closer to a Mexican city, I would say, than a city in the U.S. sometimes. Just with it's a large Latino population, and that really shapes the culture there. Yes, sir.
Is everything bigger in Texas?
Yes, even especially the egos. And actually, so I'm fascinated because you all have on I-80, you have the world's largest truck stop. So I'm fascinated by that. I think I'm trying to stop by there if I get a chance to. But we have Buc-ee's. So I want to see if you all if the truck stop here is better than Buc-ee's, because Buc-ee's is a fabulous store. If you ever have the chance to go to Texas and you're driving down the highway and you see a Buc-ee's sign, stop in there. You can get barbecue, you can get belt buckles, you can get barbecue grills, you can get beaver nuggets. I'll let you find out what beaver nuggets are, but they're delicious. You can get coffee, you can get beef jerky, you can get kolaches, just everything at Buc-ee's. And they have the cleanest bathrooms of any rest area you've ever seen. Any other questions? Any questions? How many people have been to the Mennonite Church USA convention in here? Anybody? All right, good. The next one is in Kansas City, 2019. Any other questions? Any questions? Yes, sir.
How is it possible to increase my cultural awareness if I never leave my neighborhood? Is it possible?
Is it possible? Well, you have Google now, so that, you know, you can learn some things and read some things, but just like, I mean, you can look up the recipe for a bloomin' onion on Google, but unless you start to taste it, unless you make it yourself, you have to kind of get your hands dirty and experience culture for you to really have an understanding of whatever. I mean, you can read about it, but until you get in there, get involved, you talk to people, you ask questions, you spend time with different people, then you start learning more about culture. You know, I've traveled to other nations. When I went to South Africa, I actually saw, this was after apartheid ended, I saw how that years and years of oppression still shapes those people today. I'm a relatively fair-skinned black person, so I would have been considered colored. And I was actually treated quite well, even before people knew I was American. They actually treated me quite well. Of course, if you're white, you're at the top of the pecking order in South Africa. If you're Indian, you are kind of in between white and colored. And if you're Zulu, the Zulu people wouldn't even look at me in my eye. They would hold their heads down when they talk to me. They were treated very badly. They were normally in more servant roles, like service roles, like gas station or janitors and things like that. So it made a difference. Even after the system of apartheid ended, the cultural impact of that segregation continued. Even the American group that I brought, I had a couple of young ladies. 2 were pretty light-skinned, 1 was a little darker. The family even treated those girls differently. They were staying in the same host family house. And the Indian family actually really treated the darker girl differently. Why? Because not that she didn't necessarily like them. It wasn't about that. It was just about how she had been indoctrinated by the culture. So it had a big impact. So it was easy for me to see after I got there to really understand the depth of what happened with apartheid and some of those systems. So you read about the civil rights movement, you read about the challenges that African Americans have faced in this country, but it's different from reading it and experiencing it. It really makes a difference. I think we have time for maybe one more question. Yes, sir.
Could you share a situation where you maybe experienced racism that impacted you?
Yeah, well, I'm sure racism impacts me every day. I'm trying to think of some specific examples. You know, I went to the United States Air Force Academy, and I think one of the things sometimes racism impacts people in hidden ways. And I'd done some things, got into a little trouble, and actually, yeah, and I think one day I had just cut my head, just shaved my head. This is when I actually had hair that I could cut off. But I had shaved my head one day, and I got called into one of the commander's office, and they wanted to like give me tours. You have to walk around. This punishment, you have to walk around the square for an hour with a rifle. He actually wanted to give me like 20 tours or something for cutting my hair. I'm like, well, wow, what's going on? Well, some people thought that you were doing this as because of the Way of Life Committee. The Way of Life Committee was basically the Black Student Union. They thought you might be trying to do something radical, so I'm going to have to punish you. I said, I just cut my hair. I said, we're in the military, we all cut our hair short anyway. Well, I just have to do something because people are uncomfortable. So that's the incident where I know that race really changed how discipline was applied in my situation. They thought because I cut my hair it was something radical. I guess they thought it was going to be like a Black Power movement thing or something. I'm not sure what was going on. But sometimes that's how things impact you when you are, African American person. You may get discipline applied to your life differently. Police may treat you differently because you are of certain skin color or come from a certain culture. So that's one way I think it's manifested itself in my life. But I try to live my life, and I'm aware that racism exists, and I'm aware that systems exist that will try to put me at a disadvantage. But I also say that I have God on my side, and I'm going to do everything that I can to trust God and hope that I can overcome whatever oppression people throw at me. And plus, I have it pretty easy now. Martin Luther King and a lot of the brave people really did the hard work where their lives were actually physically threatened and bitten by dogs and things like that. So the things that I have to face, sometimes I feel like that's nothing compared to what my ancestors and forefathers had to deal with. Okay, I think that's our time.
Yep. Maya has announcements. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, let's give it up.
Thank you, Glenn, for leading us in that. And you all will get a chance to interact more with Glenn throughout the day. I sent an email or shared a Google Doc with you yesterday that has our schedule on it. So on your phones, you could access that at any time if you need to know the schedule. But what we'll be doing is going through 4 rotations of 4 stations in your grade levels. So to start with, when I dismiss you all, seniors are going to go to the health room.